Hey everyone, it's Joe, and I just wanted to add a prequel actually to my three-part series about escaping Catholicism, because I discussed how I got out of it, but I never actually mentioned some of the details about what it was like living as a Catholic. So I thought I'd make a video just outlining some of the stupider things that I did when I was Catholic. The first one that pops to mind, I was a kid. You gotta remember, I was raised Catholic by a fundamentalist mother who had very strict opinions about what she... I guess if you ever read the book Angela's Ashes, that's what her life was like, although she wasn't Irish, but that same idea. Like, I remember there's a scene in that book where my mom told me, before the book had ever come out, that if ever you take communion and then you have to vomit, like if you're sick and you need to throw up, you can't throw up Jesus, so you have to, in the toilet, that's like a sacrilege, so you have to go outside and dig a hole and throw up in the dirt, where at least you can bury him like a person or some shit like that. Anyway, I was raised like that, like the Angela's Ashes style of Catholicism. And when I was very young, I knew there was a line in the Bible about you're not allowed to call anybody a fool. Something about calling a man a fool. I can't remember the biblical reference. So anyway, I didn't swear. I didn't take the Lord's name in vain. I was a very good kid. I did what I was told. Well, I was probably sassy, but I mean, I wasn't a bad kid. I didn't have evil thoughts. Like, I didn't wish people dead. I had no sex drive whatsoever, because we were not taught anything until, we figured it out on our own in our teen years. So as a younger child, I remember at my friend Sabrina's house playing with her, and then somehow we got in some fight, and I got very angry at her. And I remember screaming at her, "You fool!" And then it hit me. I was going to hell. That there was just no two ways around this. That I had to. And I remember running home and screaming and crying and hiding under my bed. And I think my mother was probably asking me what was wrong, and I don't think I could even tell her. I knew I had just committed some like horrid mortal sin. So that's one example of the foolishness. Another one that popped to mind was... a friend of mine was in to get an abortion when I was about 16, I think. This was just prior to when I lost the religion. But I remember taking my born-again Christian friend Pete down to the hospital, and we stood at the foot of her hospital bed and screamed at her. It's funny, because she and I are still friends, and she's a good person. She's since told me that she just loves using me as an example of proof that people change, because that fundamentalist 16-year-old is no more. But I mean, I was that person. There's no two ways about it. She saw that person. Well, I'm not that person anymore. Some other funny examples. Oh yeah, okay, here's a good one. The Catholic Church is like virulently against the occult, which includes astrology. And I went to Catholic school, which in Ontario is paid for by the province. So it's free education. You can choose to send your kids to public school or Catholic school. And the only difference is the religious, I guess, portion of it. Anyway, I remember also in Canada we have to take French from grades 4 through to 9, I think. And then a lot of people choose to take it further even and become bilingual. So anyway, it was in about grade 6, I believe. I would have been about 11 years old. And I remember the French teacher was this nice lady. I remember she had a bun, and I vividly remember. She's one of my favorite teachers. She was trying to teach us adjectives, words to describe nouns. And so one quick way she could think of to teach, like, adjectives are associated with astrology. So a Leo is honest, or a Libra is fair. And I mean, there were just all these different words. It was an easy way to teach vocabulary and make it fun for the kids. So I remember she had this bulletin board up with the astrological symbols, and I freaked the fuck out. I remember going in and being mortified and running home, telling my mother, and my mother gave me a whole bunch of pamphlets from the Catholic Church about how astrology was a sin and it was the occult. And I don't even remember taking it to her. I think I took it straight to the principal, quite frankly, because I was a real fundy. And the next day, the bulletin board was down. And I can only imagine the conversation that, transpired, and how this poor teacher had to concoct a new curriculum because of some wackadoo, fundy Christian child in her classroom. There were, I recently wrote this up. I should probably link to it. I put it in my blog. I recently wrote up a long story about my escape from Catholicism, and I submitted it to the Quiverful. It's called No Longer Quivering. It's a website for people who were formerly of the Quiverful movement, which I technically was not. But those are people who don't believe in birth control, and it's like believe in that patriarchal society. And I wrote up a very long, detailed description, and she said she'd put it on the website. She hasn't yet, but apparently she will someday soon. But I told some various stories of just my fundy upbringing, how wackadoo I really was. I mean, everything was an issue with me. It was moral codes of conduct, and how you could do this but you couldn't do that, and you could say this but you couldn't say that, and I really felt self-righteous because I was a good Catholic and I was doing all the things that was expected of me. Oh, this was a good one. So when you're 7, before you take your very first Holy Communion, you have to take your first Holy Confession, which means you go to sit in front of a priest and tell him, because it's always a man, your sins. Now, when you're 7, what the hell are you doing? What the hell are you sinning? What are you doing? My sister to this day insists that it was just a way for priests to get titillated by, prepubescent girls talking about how they fantasized about boys or whatever. I remember racking my brain trying to think of something because I really hadn't done anything wrong as defined by the Catholic Church. Again, perhaps sassing back to my parents or being disobedient. But I mean, really, I didn't steal, I didn't cheat, I didn't lie. I didn't. So the only thing I could think of, and this just goes to show you like how twisted my brain was at that point in my life. I remember I was sitting in class, and I don't know if I was there over recess. I was a helper, so I was often in the classroom by myself over the recess period. And I remember I had written something, I think, with pencil, and I didn't have an eraser. And I looked over to my classmate's desk, and there was an eraser. And I picked it up, one of those pink erasers. That's my cat sneezing. And I erased my error, and I put the eraser back. And I looked at the page, and there's those crumbs. That's called erasure. That's what's left of after you've erased something. And I looked down at this erasure, and I just was mortified because those crumbs were stolen property. I had stolen her eraser, not stolen and kept it, but that portion of it that I used. Yeah, I went and confessed that. So I really don't know what to say. I mean, these are things I did when I was 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. I was a child, and I lived steeped in guilt, being told that I was sinning all the time, and to constantly rack your brain and think of things you're doing because you have to confess constantly your sins. And, as a result, being taught to be very harshly judgmental about other people's behavior, too, because you're very hard on yourself. That's a real hallmark of Catholicism, is being very hard on yourself. But then if you do succeed and you are a good person and you are being hard on yourself, but you're good at doing, being a good Catholic, you almost feel like you have the right to judge other people. Like I said, standing at the foot of my friend's bed. Or another time, I think my friends in high school, they'd been together a year. I remember they were boyfriend, girlfriend. They'd been together a year, and they had started having sex. And I remember screaming at her and losing her friendship and calling her a slut. Yeah, like, whatever. I don't even know what to say to that. I mean, these are the things I thought I had the right to do because I was morally superior. Okay, I'm going to cut it there. This is just the prequel to how I eventually left the church at the age of 17. I put up a 3-part video series earlier. I'll link to that at the end of this video. But this was just the prequel, a little snapshot into the mind of a Catholic child. I want to thank, I had one guy, Jackson 2.0, I think is your name. He was left me quite an interesting comment thanking me for that video series. So I'm really glad that I touched somebody because that's, half the reason we YouTubers do this stuff. So, make a reply video. I love stuff like this. I love, you can respond to these videos and tell your own story. And I'll go ahead and upload this one.